this astaxanthin supplement, I hear it's 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, 100 times stronger than vitamin E, and 800 times stronger than CoQ10?
Yes, astaxanthin supports joint health, memory health, even anti-aging and immune health. This Hawaiʻi brand delivers 3 times more nature-identical astaxanthin to your body and is a better buy than the competition. It's called Xanthicin. Safely manage your inflammatory health with Xanthicin. It's pure and highly absorbed, providing greater benefits. Visit getxantho.com and these retailers.
All right, Hawaii Football Now, episode 25. That's right, we've made it all the way to 25, quarter century of the way. It's a little bit of a milestone show for Hunter and I. As our producer, our excellent behind-the-scenes guy, Jaron, put it, it's 5 squared. I had to do a little thinking, Jaron. Not gonna lie, you got me thinking a little bit. Sent out the email that we used for the Zoom link as we record this thing. But a big mahalo to everybody that sort of stuck around with us through 24, now 25 episodes of Hawaii Football Now, presented by our good friends over at Xanthicin. Also a big mahalo to our other big sponsors, Spectrum Mobile and Hawaii USA FCU. We record this Wednesday morning, February 16th, about 7:30 in the morning Hawaii time, to be released on Thursday morning tomorrow, February 17th. Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, as always, back with you. Fun stuff to get into. One of the big topics that we'll touch on today, the net being casted out over the islands, over Hawaii, when it comes to local recruiting, something that I think diehard fans always hammer home, right? You got to keep kids home. You got to at least attempt to keep kids home. And we will talk a bit about that coming up in just a little bit. But we are coming down from the high that is Super Bowl Sunday, the Bengals and the Rams in a wildly entertaining game, a game that came down to the final possession. The Rams win it by 3. All of the folks who had the Bengals and the points were just fine with the result and how it ended up, and maybe a bobbled PAT snap helped out a lot of folks along the way. You had a halftime show that I think a certain age demographic absolutely loved, a certain age demographic maybe didn't love so much, and a younger age demographic that maybe don't even know half the people that were on the stage. So it was a fun Sunday. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Hunter, for our opening drive here before we dive in to a little more specific Hawaii Rainbow Warrior football talk, what were some of your Super Bowl highlights, and what did you think of the game?
Oh man, to bring it home for Hawaii football, my good friend and former teammate Trayvon Henderson was on the practice squad for the Cincinnati Bengals. He did not get to suit up for the Super Bowl, but he was on the sideline. I think he was first row seats. So just seeing his story on Instagram and knowing that he was in the locker room in the mix with those guys as they prepare for the biggest of them all. I mean, there is no football game bigger than that one. And man, say what you will about Joe Burrow. That guy is tough. Got rolled up on and late in that game, went back out there, and it was almost like a feeling like he's going to drive down. They're going to kick this field goal and it's going to overtime. Like, I really felt like that was going to happen. But then sure enough, Donald just does his thing in dominant fashion. And I would like to throw this out there. The throw to Samaje Perine, the last play of the game, in my opinion, was not that bad with Donald, hanging all over him. I would like to see Perine dive for that ball. I really would. It landed maybe, just a couple feet from him. Game on the line, all of those reps, all of those practices, lay out for the ball, man. It's kind of like when Cam Newton didn't dive on the fumble against Peyton Manning back, I think that was 2016 or something like that. I kind of wanted him to dive for that ball.
Yeah, Aaron Donald, to me, the MVP of the game. I get Cooper Kupp. It's nothing against Cooper Kupp. The guy was amazing. They targeted him repeatedly down the stretch, which that's what it turned into with that offense. They couldn't run the football. And without Odell Beckham in there, it was Cooper Kupp all day, and he was terrific. Catches the game-winning touchdown. But to me, yeah, Aaron Donald was worth the. I just watched him.
Totally.
Right? I just watched him, basically. That's where I zeroed in every time the Bengals had the ball. It was on the defensive line. Where was 99? And just watching him bench press like 300-pound dudes with one hand while making tackles on ball carriers with the other hand repeatedly. He is a generational meteoric talent that I think we take for granted because he is that good, and we just assume that he always will play that good, which he has basically for like 8 seasons now. But the guy he's all time. He's all time. Like, you know, you could talk about Reggie White, you can talk about some of these other guys. But I don't know, man. What Aaron Donald does is just, it's kind of jaw dropping. And again, he just makes it look routine. The guy's amazing. And I thought the Rams D line was going to ultimately win him the game. And it didn't quite play out the way that I thought necessarily. But the most important play of the game, it was the Rams D line that went and made a play. And I think, you know, that was the big difference in the ball game, was their pressure. Yeah, Joe Burrow, man. I love me some Joe Burrow, but they cannot let him get hit this much throughout the rest of his career. He has taken way too many hits over the first 2 seasons, and dragged that team all the way to the Super Bowl. So yeah, they got to protect my guy Joey Burrow a little bit better. We'll see. I'm sure that'll be a high priority for them in the offseason because they got a lot of the other pieces.
Yeah, Joe Burr, man, that guy, and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I like their little team they're creating, man. And then on top of that O-line, they got to find some help for DBs over there. Eli Apple was just getting flat out exposed, and we knew it was going to happen. We knew that whether it was OBJ or Cooper Kupp. I'm not much of a gambler, Jordan. I really should have put my money where my mouth is. I really said the Rams were going to get set. They were going to sack Burrow at least 7 times. That happened. And I knew Kupp was going to get at least 1 touchdown. I should have put my money there too.
Yeah, too, right?
Oh my goodness. And I was in Nevada. I was right next to Reno.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah, you had your snowboarding, skiing trip. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, and this is the other thing, right? And I'll use this to sort of segue into some of the meat of our conversation. But you've got guys like Joe Burrow, you got guys like Jamar Chase, right? T. Higgins, who are massive recruits. But then you've also got dudes like Aaron Donald, who was pretty under recruited, even though he ends up at Pitt. Don't get me wrong, a Power 5 conference team. And you guys like Cooper Kupp, who's a Super Bowl MVP, who went to Eastern Washington, right? He went to EWASH, and way under the radar. And so there are guys like that are littered around the country, right? That just need a shot, that can play, that are football players. Maybe they don't look like a prototypical Super Bowl MVP, right? Cooper Kupp doesn't look like Von Miller or you know, some of these other guys that have won Super Bowl MVP in the past. But you think of him, you think of Julian Edelman, who was the MVP the last time the Rams were in the Super Bowl. You know, undersized receiver who like played part-time quarterback at Kent State. Like, there are guys out there that can play. And for the University of Hawaii, finding those type of guys, you know, it's doable.
Yeah.
Right. If a guy like Cooper Kupp can end up at Eastern Washington, a guy like Cooper Kupp could end up at the University of Hawaii. And it's a matter of mining and finding these hidden gems. And a lot of those guys, and I'm not saying, you know, this recruiting class that coming out of Hawaii has Cooper Kupp in it, but they got a lot of dudes who can play. And that's the case year in and year out. And we see that with the talent that leaves for the mainland and some of the talent that stays home as well. And so Timmy Chang, his coaching staff, has made it a very, very high priority to recruit Hawaii. That's evident in the way that last week played out, right? Timmy Chang tweeted out with a guy like throwing net off the shoreline, a little gif of that, and just with the caption, casting the net, #brotherhood. Brotherhood. Hawaii goes on an offering spree basically last week, really going hard after local Hawaii recruits for future recruiting classes, even some that are in the class of 2022 that maybe, you know, are under the radar, maybe don't have FBS offers just yet. But last Friday, the 11th, offered at least 10 local recruits. I'm probably underselling. I probably missed some guys, but counting through it, I know Billy Hall of Hawaii Prep World was kind of going through, keeping tabs of all of these things. Some of the other, you know, Hawaii Twitter accounts, 808 football recruits, like some of these other guys out there, they're doing all the hard work, right? So I was trying to count through it. They're at least double digits. I don't know how high the number got, but it was a ton of dudes. Some dudes that have double-digit D1 offers, guys like Brock Ravens-Fonoimoana from Kahuku, and some guys who that was their first offer, right? That was their first FBS offer from some of the other schools around the state. It wasn't just on Oahu as well. You had guys from Kauai being offered, some of the other recruits. So Hunter, I just ask you, how big is this? How important is this for the program? We know that they've been pretty strategic about how they're handing out scholarships counting towards this recruiting class, the class of 2022. You know, they've still got some scholarships in hand that they can give out. They're sort of seeing how the portal plays out. But how critical is it that they're not just offering, you know, some of the recognizable names? I mean, they are literally trying to cast a net over the islands, and they were throwing offers at a ton of dudes.
Yeah. I've got a couple thoughts here. First of all, I think back to the 30 for 30 on Miami, and when Schnellenberger back in, I think that was like the 80s, when he circled Florida and said, "We own Florida." And in a similar way, it seems like Coach Chang is circling Hawaii and says, "We own Hawaii in whatever way that we can. We're bringing these guys in here." And sure, people, I can already, feel the heat going, maybe these guys aren't the biggest and the best that Hawaii has to offer, with, certain people going over to Power 5 and going to the mainland. Sure, I understand that. But then, you brought up Cooper Kupp. It's not always the fact that you get the biggest, the strongest, the fastest guy that checks all of the boxes on a recruiting, manual that makes a good football player. I mean, it's a team sport. Football takes unity. Football takes chemistry. Football takes understanding. And I like what they're doing kind of with this marketing campaign with the football team, with this brotherhood piece, because they're really trying to create a family here in Hawaii, not only to mend what we had, in this last, couple of years in the Todd Graham era, trying to repair some of that, but trying to start fresh. And, what is this thing that we're all coming and being a part of? It's this brotherhood, and people that have played for Hawaii, like myself, still feel a part of that fraternity, of that family that is the Warrior Ohana. So, I mean, I think everything that we're seeing right here with, recruiting all these guys is trying to accomplish that.
And excuse me. And when local recruits see this, I think, Hunter, right? And not just from a University of Hawaii perspective, from the other side of the coin, if you will, when local recruits see this, when high school football coaches see this, these guys, these are well-entrenched programs. These are well-entrenched families, right? What is the message received, I guess I should say, from a kid who, is going through the process, who is trying to get recruited, who is, ranging the spectrum from dudes that are scratching and clawing and trying to get noticed to some of these dudes who have big decisions to make and are getting recruited by the likes of Texas and whatnot. But just from a kid's standpoint, a young man's standpoint, when you're going through this and you're trying to figure out what your future is, what is the message received when the hometown university, the hometown football program is this present, is this aggressive when it comes to going after these local kids?
It shows that they're a priority. And I'll take it a step deeper. The things that they care about, the things that their family cares about, they're cared about by this guy, Timmy Chang, as well. Born and bred. There's an understanding to living in Hawaii, being Hawaiian. And there's just a relatability there that people from the mainland, like myself, can't always relate to. As much as we might want to or try to, there's just a disconnect there. And then two, some of these guys, getting their first offers, some would say, are they deserving a Division I offer? Let's be honest, Hawaii, with what has transpired these last couple of months, we're really not in a position to go out there and get the absolute best. We're trying to fill a roster by any means necessary. But by getting guys like this, I actually think it's somewhat advantageous, because these guys haven't gotten other offers. They're going to, I would put big money that they are going to probably accept these offers and come in and play very hard and very loyally to this coaching staff because they gave them a shot. So I see that first and foremost, not only because of their relatability to this coaching staff, but the pride. There's almost like this, we're instilling pride back into Hawaii football again.
they're present, right? At the very
Yeah.
least, they're front of mind. You see these coaches around campus. You see them, you know, being integrated into the greater football sort of community within the state. And the nice thing is, a lot of these guys have been there, right? Whether it's the head coach Timmy Chang, who literally has walked in these kids' shoes as a local kid, a
Yes.
local recruit coming out of Hawaiʻi high school. Some of these guys with ties, obviously, to Hawaii, having coached in Hawaii high school football, having played Hawaii high school football, amongst the coaching staff. You know, I mean, again, they've got guys like Kahuku safety Brock Fonoimwana, Kapa'a linebacker Solemone Malafu, who continues to kind of climb up the recruiting ranks after a monster season for the Division II state champs. You got a Waianae offensive lineman Josh Timoteo, Kapolei two-way lineman Iosepa Tapeni, Punahou quarterback John Kiave Sangapolu Tele, who's a good one and maybe flown under the radar a little bit because of some of the other more high-profile quarterback recruits over the last couple of recruiting cycles. St. Louis wide receiver Mason Mua'au is another big physical target. You got Roosevelt linebacker Kamuela Ka'aihue, who's a really good basketball player as well, we learned last night. Mililani receiver DB Gavin Hunter, whose dad played for the University of Hawaii. You got Campbell wide receiver Kamehu Kopa Ka'avao Laole, Trechke Kahuna, the St. Louis receiver. You got a ton of these guys, and those are just the ones that sort of, you know, the university and the coaching staff can't say anything, but these are the guys that sort of make it known on Twitter and whatnot. And then you had Mililani, defensive back, a kid who started his high school career over at Damien and Makana Meyer, verbally commit to the University of Hawaii yesterday, Tuesday, that is, February 15th. And he's going to basically be a part-time enrollee, basically a gray shirt, and then count towards the 2023 recruiting class. And he's an example, right, of a guy, I think, that, look, you're trying to be present, right? And maybe you're not going to get all these kids that you offered, but you want to make it known that, hey, we're committed to this community. We're committed to this school. We're committed to guys that are coming up from your background, right? So maybe you don't get the kid in 2022, but you get the kid who's a JV player now, who's going to be, you know, something to reckon with in a couple of years because you've sort of planted the flag, right? You're starting to build the foundation. You're laying down roots, if you will. And then the familial ties, right? Getting guys that have strong connections to the University of Hawaii. And Makana Meyer, who was a first team all-league in the OIA, who was a second team all-state safety, dude who runs a 4.5 in the 40 as he was timed at the Polynesian Bowl Combine. You know, he's got ties. Like his great grandfather played at the University of Hawaii. His uncles are Kamale Correa, Haku Correa, La'anui Correa, right? La'anui obviously playing with Timmy Chang during their time at the University of Hawaii. His older brother played at Nevada when Timmy Chang was coaching at Nevada. Like all of these family ties, right? They, in Hawaii especially, they mean a lot. They mean a lot when it comes to relationships. They mean a lot when it comes to trust. And quite honestly, even if it's a little Uji, they mean a lot when it comes to recruiting and getting kids to trust you and to buy into your program when you've got some familial connections, whether pre-existing or if you're trying to build those, right? As this coaching staff is in multiple communities, it goes a long way. Totally. And I think a guy like Makana Meyer, who, yeah, he's graduating this year, but he's not necessarily going to contribute in the fall, but he is a guy that is very much in the plans for next year's recruiting class in 2023. Those things pay off.
Totally. I mean, life is way more about who you know than what you know. Bill Belichick said that, and I couldn't agree anymore. The minute Timmy Chang takes this head coaching job, Chad Owens knows that his kid's going to go to Hawaii. Boom, immediately. Why? I mean, because they're best friends, they're college teammates, they were superstars together. Of course, his kid, Chad Owens Jr., is going to be a part of that, whether on scholarship or not. It's just a no-brainer. And I couldn't agree with you anymore. There's something more significant in Hawaii than other places when you have walked in the same footsteps with some of these people. And recruiting, especially, you're right, it's weightier, it's more significant. And for parents signing off on their kids going to a school, it's easier for them to sign off, on a coach like Timmy Chang if they know him, if they know about him, and the legacy that he was a part of. They want their kid to hopefully be a part of something similar.
So to kind of close out this conversation, Hunter, I'm kind of curious, right? As a guy who's played, collegiately at the highest level at the University of Hawaii, a guy who's sort of seen this process play out. How does and some of these other guys, right? I'm Meyer, right? He's a gray shirt guy, but there are other recruits that Hawaii is targeting, right? And there will be those out there that say, hey, man, if we can just keep all of these kids home, right? The Marcus Mariotas, the Manti Te'os, like all of these guys who go on and make Heisman Trophy ceremonies and things like that. Probably a little unrealistic when it's like Oregon or Notre Dame or Clemson or Alabama coming in knocking. That's just the way things work, right? But how does the University of Hawaii close the deal with some of those guys, right? Even if you can keep one of those kids home every several years, some of those big high profile recruits, right? Which Hawaii really hasn't been able to do. And I don't think that's to their fault, no matter what the coaching staff is, again, because if you get the Oregon recruiting pitch versus the Hawaii recruiting tour, it's apples and oranges. But how does that play out, right? Because I think they are doing a good job, and we are seeing that in some of the recent signees, some of the recent verbal commits, of keeping the middle tier recruit home, right? The guy, you got to win the battles against Nevada and Fresno and Utah State. Like, you got to win some of those battles. They haven't won all of them, sure. A guy like AJ Bianco obviously signs with Nevada over the University of Hawaii. You're not going to win all of them, but you got to win the majority of those, I think. But how does Timmy Chang, this coaching staff, go about trying to lure the kid away from Stanford or the kid away from Texas? How does that play out in your mind? If it's even possible outside of the fact that, look, the kid just wants to stay home. Is there something that the coaching staff or the University of Hawaii can do to give them, I don't know if an advantage is the right word, but give them a fighting chance to keep a kid of that profile home?
Name, image, likeness. I think a name, image, and likeness deal in Hawaii, a good one, is more substantial than a good name, image, and likeness in Alabama, in Mississippi, in Texas. You know why? Because big fish in a small pond in Hawaii. You get to flex more. People see you more over here. Friends of mine that are pro surfers or this or that. That it's a heavier weight to be a celebrity in Hawaii than it is in LA. You're just one of many over there. But if you get to be a rock star over here in Hawaii, where there's not a lot of rock stars, they pay you well for it. Your name is on billboards, you're on TV commercials for the first time ever in college football history. We have to do the best job in all of the Mountain West, in my opinion, in partnering with local companies, local business owners that love Hawaii football. And I talk to them every day. They would love to be a part of something like this. Once we get the rules and the regulations figured out on how to accomplish this practically with our football program, that we have to sling that like it is our absolute golden triton, if you will. Like, we have to use that as our greatest asset to keep those top-notch Hawaii football recruits here.
Bingo. I think that you hit it on the head. I couldn't agree more. That is, while yes, it maybe gives some of these big programs another advantage because they've got more resources, they've got more attorneys that can figure things out when it comes to this. It also gives, I think, if you use it right, if you go about it smartly, you market Hawaii, you market Hawaii kids, it gives programs like Hawaii a fighting chance to maybe keep some of these Kims home, if you can do the name, image, likeness thing correctly. And I think that is 100% true, and I couldn't endorse that more, Hunter. I think that is the path forward, no doubt about it. And you mentioned rock stars. We'll be curious to figure out whether their stage will be in the coming years, right? The whole stadium thing, it's kind of interesting. We'll get into that in the second half of the podcast, where exactly the future home for the University of Hawaii will be long-term. We know short-term, it's TC Ching, it's on campus, because we all know that stadium in Halava, if it's ever going to get built, isn't getting built right away. That's just how things work here. So we'll see how that goes. We'll get into that in part 2. But before we hit the halftime break, only one brand delivers 3 times more astaxanthin than the competition, and that is Xanthicin. Astaxanthin helps with joint and muscle function, with cholesterol and cognitive health. Astaxanthin is even recommended by doctors and pharmacists for its anti-aging qualities. Available at getxantho.com, Newtown Square Pharmacy, Down to Earth Kaka'ako, and PharmaCare Hawaii. Again, check out getxantho.com to learn more. That's getxantho.com to learn more. All right, halftime break. Second half coming up.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second halftime here on Hawaii Football Now, episode 25. That's right, a little bit of a milestone show here. Fun conversation in the first half regarding local recruiting, regarding the very tangible efforts by this University of Hawaii coaching staff to go after local recruits. Obviously, part of the conversation when it comes to any recruit, no matter where they're going, is what are the facilities like? What are the perks? Where are you going to be playing? What the game day experience is like? What are the crowds like? All of the above, right? And for the University of Hawaii, it's been sort of in limbo over the last couple of years with the condemnation of Aloha Stadium, the transition to TC Ching, the transformation of Lower Campus and building that thing out. They're supposed to add a couple more thousand seats, I believe, for this year. There are plans to expand it even beyond that. And all the while, the state legislature, the powers that be, they're still trying to figure out the NASED, I believe is the abbreviation, because we like to abbreviate everything, right, when it comes to this. The new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District. Is it going to be mixed use with housing? Is it going to be a big stadium? Is there going to be a parking lot for tailgating? Is it going to be more geared towards entertainment? We still don't know. There are updates that come out periodically. Do I read all of them? I skim them because things change. There seemed to be a narrowing down process of who exactly is going to get the bid to build this thing out, what the plans are. We kind of know that it really looks like retail and residential space with a stadium in the middle. Again, I think a lot of folks, at least the diehards, the season ticket holders, they really just want to know if they can tailgate and where. I think that's what boils down to a lot of this. But the Honolulu Star-Advertiser actually did a poll a week or so ago. Their Hawaii poll, they polled about a whole bunch of things, whether it came to approvals on politicians and all kinds of things in between. But one of the questions asking registered voters their opinion on whether a new Aloha Stadium should be built as part of a major development in Halava, or whether the home of the University of Hawaii football should be at Clarence T.C. Ching Complex as it continues to expand over the coming years. And interestingly, it was kind of split. 46% of those who voted for a new stadium in Halava. That got the most response. 38% want to see the stadium be on the UH Manoa campus, and that doesn't include 1 out of basically every 6 responders who said they were either unsure or didn't approve of either idea. And so you had a range, right? You had a range of folks. I think they polled over 1,000 folks in a range of people who, they want it to be a multi-sport facility in Halava because of the advantageous nature of a 35,000 seat venue for beyond University of Hawaii, right? Concerts, high school football, professional sports, all those types of things that come through and have come through Aloha Stadium, right? Where monster truck rally, like all those things. Where you're at the University of Hawaii, it's a little more confined. It's a little more specific, obviously, to the University of Hawaii. They've got much more control over the game day experience, which I will say, having gone to a few games this year, right? Most of the home games was pretty good. I thought they did a really good job about building up the game day experience there on campus in Manoa. And so you read through the comments, which is never a great idea. But I thought it was maybe fruitful to read through some of the comments on the Star-Advertiser article, read through some of the comments via the tweets of this article put out there. And it is funny, Hunter, because I come back to this, and so many of the recognizable names of folks who comment on all these kinds of things, of Twitter accounts. Like the diehards, they really want to know if tailgating is a thing that will be allowable, whether it's on campus, whether it's in Halava, whether they figure something out in West Oahu, whether they play on the moon. And I don't know how big a percentage of the folks that will actually go to the game are included in this, but I do know it's the diehards. I do know it's the guys who show up every week. I do know it's the fans who buy season tickets. Like the tailgating aspect is a huge thing. And whether you want to lead with that, Hunter, you want to talk a little more big picture. But what are your thoughts on the results of this little survey? And what do you think is the proper path for one, the University of Hawaii, and two, a state, the sort of the central state stadium going forward? Because in reality, that might be two different answers.
Yeah. To go off the tailgating, I couldn't agree anymore. In a lot of ways, tailgating for my entire time that affiliated with the program was sometimes more important than the game. So many of my college classmates that I knew that would come to Aloha Stadium would rage out at the tailgate, but would never make it into the game. And sometimes that's a style even for the season ticket holders. They like to be out there listening to the game on the radio, listen to the fans from inside the stadium, but still in the comfort of their lawn chair and a beverage of choice in the other hand. And so, yeah, I think that needs to be solved because that's so much a part of the game day experience that is University of Hawaii football. I think that that poll is pretty telling that a pretty sizable amount of the general public would agree that Halava may not be the answer. And I understand that, our hands are kind of tied with space on UH's campus, but we got to get creative. I still think there's possibilities to buff out our stadium on campus to add a few thousand more seats. There's space between the east end zone and the baseball stadium right there. We could beef that section up tremendously. Even the west side of the stadium with the parking structure right there, there's space. Yeah, it would be a challenge, but that's a problem that we absolutely need to solve from a stadium perspective, because Hawaii at this point is at risk of dropping a level from Division I to N1AA with our stadium capacity right now. That's just the math and the reality of the situation. In terms of game day environment and bigger picture stuff for tailgating, I would love for us to shut down Upper Campus on Saturdays. Shut the whole thing down and let people park all over Upper Campus. Make it an absolute college football town up in Manoa where people, can grill, they can do all sorts of stuff. And in that way, University of Hawaii and the parking committee, whatever that board is, needs to come together. Okay, as a former student athlete, parking on that campus is an absolute joke. We have got to do a better job there. And so if we're going to make this a better environment for the fans as a whole, we all have to be on board. I mean, that goes for facilities, that goes for the university as a whole, that goes for parking. All of those things need to get on the same page, because if you live in Hawaii for any amount of time, the new stadium out in Halava, we know that ain't going to get done for another decade at best. So we have to fix the problem now on a ground level practical standpoint to create a winning environment here at UH.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? They really can't afford to wait for whatever the NASED turns into. I struggle with it a little bit because I see the potential, like you do, of an on-campus stadium for the University of Hawaii and what that opportunity presents. It also comes with a price tag, no doubt. There needs to be expenses, committed to, because you got to build that thing out. I think if they do it right, they can create a pretty intimate, quality home field experience that could be a home field advantage, right, for the University of Hawaii. And so, but for me, on the other hand, right, the big question is that, maybe 7, you throw in the Hawaii Bowl, 8 maybe dates at most a year for the entire year, right? That's not a whole lot. And I'm sure the University of Hawaii can parlay that venue into, high school football games. They can use it for concerts. They can use it for other type of things that obviously a venue like that can be used for. Now, in an ideal world, and again, this is pie in the sky, like pipe dream, like probably never going to happen because bureaucracy and just everything that comes with it. Like an on-campus stadium would be great. A larger multi-purpose, multi-sport facility in Halava that is sort of the gathering place, the state's stadium, in addition to a built-out TC Ching, would be lovely, right? Hey, if you have a huge game, if you have, you invite Michigan down or something like that, right? Oregon down, which I believe they're scheduled to do at some point in the future. You need a stadium that holds 35,000 plus, then you play 1 or 2 games a year over in Halava. I don't think that's a bad plan. But for the new Aloha Stadium, right, it can be used for so many things, so many big events, whether it's Bruno Mars or Monster Jam or, whoever that comes through there, the venue, if they're serious about luring a professional soccer team here or a professional rugby team here, which has been discussed in the past, and quite honestly, I don't think is necessarily all that viable. But having a larger venue like that, I think is still doable because at the end of the day, again, even if the University of Hawaii football team is not a tenant of the new Aloha Stadium, that's like 7 to 8 dates you lose out on. Like, is that make or break for the new Aloha Stadium? I'm going to imagine that it probably isn't, or it shouldn't if you're running that thing properly, right? Because of all the other things that you can use, the swap meet that, you can use in the parking lot that'll be continuous and things like that. But that's my my dream scenario.
Yeah.
Again, probably not going to happen. I'm still skeptical that it gets built at all. I don't think I'm alone in that skepticism. So we'll see. And I think for the University of Hawaii, you can't wait. You can't wait and see, right? You got to move forward a full speed ahead and build that thing out on campus as best as you can.
I will say this, I completely agree that we need a venue that can support large large events like big time entertainers. You mentioned monster trucks, something like that. That just ain't going to get done at University of Hawaii. But we're in an interesting time right now where the crowd can really sway decisions of institutions like University of Hawaii. We watched it happen with the whole June Jones debacle. That came out of nowhere, and a large part because of the outcry by our faithful listening right now on social media. You look at a lot of the money that was raised for the current UH stadium, a lot of that was crowdsourced. If we want to make something happen on campus, keep the party on campus, like I've said 1,000 times before, which from a football standpoint is huge in creating a winning culture, we can get it done through crowdsourcing. That's not that far out of the realm of possibilities. And then in some ways, you make UH follow suit and get in line, because this is where we're headed. It's kind of an interesting thing where the power structures are kind of shifting, and it's coming back to the fan base and kind of seeing what they want to do with it all.
Yeah, and we'll see what comes of it. It's a fun conversation topic for sure. The sort of build your own stadium aspect of on campus and the possibilities that come with it, as well as we're seeing some of those things come to fruition. But yeah, as I think everybody is well aware, the Halava project is still a ways off when it comes down to it. And I just hope we get tailgating. That's I'm also on board. I endorse all of those people commenting and expressing their opinion on that. It makes the game day atmosphere quite fun. having spent some time in the Aloha Stadium parking lot over the years myself. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners have as well. All right, to kind of close things out before we head into overtime, some of our comments via YouTube, Facebook. Again, feel free to leave comments on those videos there, whether you find us on social media as well, Instagram, Twitter. You can leave us comments there. You can get at us directly. I'm at Jordan Helle Hunter at all around ATH on the Twitter. But we did have one comment from our guy Al. He was asking, why not much conversation regarding June Jones' role in the program. I think other folks have kind of wondered that as well. And I think the simple answer is there because I don't think he really has much of a role in the program. I think he's been open about saying, hey, yeah, if Timmy Chang wants to give him a call and whatnot, that relationship is still strong. But when it comes to a direct role with the University of Hawaii program, that I really don't think there will be one for June Jones, especially after the way things played out in the whole hiring process debacle. I can't quite blame him. So yeah, I just don't think there's much to discuss because there's not much there.
Yeah, June Jones' current role is playing golf.
It's a good life. It's a good gig.
It's a good gig. And tip of the cap to that guy. He plays golf barefoot, believe it or not. I've seen it with my own eyes. Yeah, that guy is really not in any rush or any stress to really get his hands dirty. He wanted to. Let me just say that he really wanted to. And his love for his former players, alumni, what have you, is always going to be there. If those guys have something they want to run by him, just from a consulting perspective, probably on the offensive side of the football, his phone's always available. I remember Rolo being on the phone with him many times, and it's kind of been a similar pattern. June, copied some of the coaches that went before him, and his players are kind of doing the same thing. And it's a family. But some of the bureaucracy and, higher stuff that has happened in this hiring thing, I don't think June has an absolute definitive role with our program for the time being.
Yeah, the role is more of a personal one, I think,
right,
amongst individuals on the coaching staff as opposed to a direct line to the program. That's just kind of, I think, the fact of the matter. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, Don Nelson, former NBA coach, long time. He also golfs barefoot. So I don't know if it's like an old retired coach thing. If you can just get some grass and dirt and sand between your toes, you might as well, right? I know
my feet would get so sunburned that there's no way.
You got to put the sunscreen on, right? You got to be preemptive. But then things get a little slippery. It's a little dicey. But yeah, it's kind of funny that these two guys who have been wildly successful, both guys who coached professionally in their respective sports at the highest level, both love Hawaii. Don Nelson's over on Maui and golfs all the time.
Maybe he gave him the idea.
Is it? Maybe
Yeah.
They got to know each other. Those guys have to know each other. There's no way they don't. The circles in Hawaii are far too small, and quite honestly, the circles in like professional sports and coaching are also a lot smaller than I think people think as well. All right, a little overtime to end our show here today. My little extra, Hunter, a celebration of life for Colt Brennan has been planned for March 20th on Waikiki Beach near Duke's, 8 a.m. The public is invited, so I did want to put that out there for everybody. We can't remember the guy enough, all that he meant for the football program and really just the state of Hawaii as a whole. Some of the remembrances and honorings of Colt Brennan were a little abbreviated just because of the pandemic and everything. And I know they honored him at a game last year, but I think you and I were both on the record saying that we probably should do something again once full capacity is allowed, because that game was limited capacity. The game that they retired his number last season. So I think, hopefully there is something down the road at TC Ching on campus as well, again, to honor Colt. But if anybody is interested, if anybody can make the time down on March 20th, again, on Waikiki Beach near Duke's, a lot of room to spread out, a lot of room to social distance, and the public is invited for a public memorial for Colt Brennan. That is Sunday, March 20th, a celebration of life. So just wanted to throw that out there, and hope folks can make it down.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. That it was cool. It was classy the way they did it on campus, but there was a feeling that really that's it. We got to honor the guy a little bit more. So I'm glad that they're doing something and inviting the greater public to come down and be a part of it too.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I'm sure some tears will be shed, but some smiles and some laughs as well. And Colt, I think, he elicited all those emotions over his time and in his life, and obviously the time of his life that spanned his career and post-career in the islands for sure. So that about do it for us here on episode 25. That's right, episode 25. We fully head into the off season now as we move through February, but spring football is right around the corner, and there is a little buzz in the air, I think, when you think about the recent recruiting surge by the University of Hawaii. Much more to talk about when we rejoin you guys next week. For Hunter, Jordan Helle saying so long. Again, this has been Hawaii Football Now presented by Xanthison, and a big shout out to our sponsor Spectrum Mobile and Hawaii USA FCU as well. Aloha, everybody.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helle and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.